tech doesn't ruin the experience. If it's done right, it absolutely can elevate it and make sure customers walk out happier than before.
Today on Dirty Linen, we're talking to Stevan Premutico. He's an entrepreneur in the broad and ever-changing field of hospitality technology. Probably if you put those words together a few decades ago, it just really would be quite meaningless, but it could mean all kinds of things today. He's the founder of Me&U, a phone-based menu ordering and payment app, which was something of a curiosity back in 2019 when I think it launched, but today it seems like a kind of obvious thing that we all need. Stevan's probably best known for launching the booking platform Dimmi in 2009, and you can tell me if I'm wrong when I think that you sold it in 2015 for $25 million. But welcome to the show, Stevan.
Hello, Dani. Great to be here.
Really good to have you. I'm really looking forward to this chat, not least because you promised it was going to be raw and honest.
It's the only way, right?
I reckon so. Well, you pushed this call out a little bit. You said you're having a crazy day. Let's just start there. What's a day in your life like at the moment?
Yeah, wow. Well, I normally wake early, so I'm up at 5. I'm getting my head around the day, try to squeeze in a bit of fitness, but that normally gets pushed to the side. I think I've got a couple of hours to get my head straight before the craziness starts. So I'm normally sort of doing my creative stuff in the morning, thinking about ideas for the business, thinking about how we can grow, how we can help the industry a bit better. And then I'll probably spend most of my day with partners and with clients who are keen to understand more about the Me&U business. That's a part I love.
So, I mean, you've worked in hospitality, aren't you? I think you had a connection with restaurants from a very young age. Am I right?
Yeah, Dani, I'm Italian. So I think, my connection with hospitality started, when I was born, as an Italian kid growing up around, your nonno and your nonno and the big fat Italian lunch. So I think, the most fond memories, of my life still stem from, those lunches and those dinners. And so I think, when I created Dimmi many years later, it was a pretty simple ambition. And it was like, if the best moment in life happen around food, how do I use technology to kind of, help support the industry and make some of those experiences a bit more magical?
So is that where you start when you come up with ideas? Is it that problem solving a sort of scenario or something that you think needs fixing?
Yeah, I think that's my job. Like I think I'm at the heart, I see problems and in hospitality, and then I use tech to try and solve them. And I think, you mentioned Dimmi. Like when I first started Dimmi, it's crazy to think about that today, but the way we would book restaurants back then would be that you would call a restaurant, you would leave a voice message, they would call you back, you're playing phone tag, and it was impossible to make bookings. So, what we set out to do there was to really sort of just make life easier for operators and for customers. And, to 15 years later, that's become the norm. When we first started Me&U, again, the problem was pretty evident. It just felt nuts that I could get an Uber to pick me up at my door faster than I can order a beer in a pub. It just didn't feel right. So we set out to change that and to, democratize and to revolutionize the way customers order and pay for their experiences in venues. And yeah, you say that it's, become the norm now, but it's 3 years of, hard yards to try and get it to that point.
I mean, the kinds of things that people always say when you talk about technology, coming into a space that's been about human interaction is that people miss out on something that's very important about the hospitality experience or the retail experience or whatever it might be. What's your response to that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Dani. I think, when I first started Me&U, it was very clear in my head that if Me&U came into this industry and we got rid of the heart and soul that makes this industry and binds this industry, then Me&U we wouldn't make it past, past the first base. So I think, that was always very evident and clear from the beginning. So, but I think the other bit that we can't forget is that the magic and the connections and, the memories that happen in hospitality are not necessarily formed just between a customer and a staff member. It's the magic that happens around the table with the people that you're there to celebrate with and enjoy a few beers with, right? So I think the way we looked at it is, first and foremost, how do we get rid of all the friction, the crap, the shit that, just doesn't enhance the experience? Customers having their hands in the air, can't get a glass of wine, losing one of your mates to the bar for 15 minutes to order, a pizza. That just doesn't add value to anybody's life. So we set out to eliminate those points of friction, number one. And then number two, I think the big bit that we've found is the role of the front of house team has changed. And I think it's fair to say that when we first started, everyone thought we were here to get rid of jobs. And that, couldn't be further from the truth. I think what we've absolutely done is the role of the front of house team has shifted. And it's no longer about taking an order and collecting payment. It's now about connection, rapport, and building relationships with customers, which I think is the heart of hospitality and what we set out to create. So I think it's a long-winded answer, but to say that, tech doesn't ruin the experience. If it's done right, it absolutely can elevate it and make sure customers walk out happier than before.
I mean, you're obviously a keen observer of restaurants and the kinds of things that happen inside them. What do you, at the heart of it, think restaurants are for? What's the purpose of them?
Memories and magic. Like, I think, it's, again, like if I think about my life and my upbringing and, it's the breaking of bread with, with family, friends and loved ones. And that's, this industry, whether it's cafes, restaurants or pubs, we bring people together, and at a time like today, where we've been so distant and so disconnected, I think the role of this industry is more important today than ever before. So, so when I think about hospitality, it's about bringing people together and creating memories that last a lifetime. And, that started for me as a kid. And then, is very true and deep in my heart today.
So what kinds of things frustrate you about restaurants?
Dani, I'm a bit like you. I've been in this game for a long time. So I think we tend to overlook a lot of them because we, in our heart, we have such a deep empathy and connection with this industry. But like, I think, some of the very obvious things are that, it's very clear that the business model of this industry is broken. It was, we were on our knees pre-COVID, and now COVID's come along, given us a big fat uppercut and knocked us out. So I think, something has to give. Something has to change for this industry to survive and thrive on the other side. So I think, the economics of this industry just don't stack up. I think that's becoming more and more evident and clear. I think, that's the first bit. I think the second bit is that, there's a lot of friction when it comes to to customers' experiences in venues, right? And, that comes down to, taking long times to order your food, taking long times to pay the bill, the awkwardness of splitting the bill, all of that stuff that, is kind of accepted now. But there's no doubt in my mind in 3 years from today, we'll look back at that and say, I can't believe you used to have to stand in a queue for 10 minutes to order a beer. So I think that's pretty hot on my radar as something that just doesn't make a lot of sense in today's generation, where we're so convenient rich and we just value convenience so much. And I think the final one, Dani, is something that I do think a lot about, is that you know, we're about creating personable experiences in venues, and it just doesn't resonate so greatly that every customer rocks up to a venue and they're treated the same, and they're given the same menu. And I do think deep in my heart that, you know, hospitality is about creating personal experiences, and there's got to be something magical about knowing more about our customers and delivering more personal menus, ordering, and experiences for our customers.
Oh, my goodness. I have so many thoughts on everything that you've just said. I don't even know where to start. But one thing I will pick up on is when you talk about hospitality, you say we. So it's really interesting to me that you think that you're part of the industry, not just, I guess, a supplier to it or someone trying to sell your idea into it.
I get goosebumps when you say that, right? Because, you know, I had my mother and father, you know, running a cafe restaurant in Gordon in Sydney for 10 years. And, you know, I was there, you know, by their side every day, you know, seeing people stealing money out of the tills, couldn't make ends meet, you know, leaving home at 5 o'clock in the morning, not getting home until, you know, midnight. You know, it makes me shiver just to think about the pain and the struggle and just how difficult this industry is. So I have a very deep affinity to it. I'm not conscious of the fact that I say we, but, you know, my heart is in it, and that's probably why I do that.
Yeah, interesting. Something else I wanted to pick up on is this, like, splitting the bills. Like, absolutely, it is so annoying, and I can just think of 3 instances in the past week that I've been just like, held up by that. And I'm not saying it's just because I'd had 2 martinis and it was really hard to divide by 3, but that might have been an issue. But another thing I say is I can't even remember the last time I spent 10 minutes waiting to order a beer. But if I think about when it was probably, I can think of, you know, good social times when you're standing at a bar and you actually meet people, you have a fun little chat, or maybe, maybe you meet someone, maybe it ends up, I mean, I'm not saying this happened to me ever, but maybe you go on a date and maybe stuff happens. But then I'm thinking, actually, you know, the kids are doing that on apps now anyway. So they might as well, you know, wait for order a beer on the app, swipe right at the same time and get it all done. But I guess another thing that I want to think of, and let's take the conversation here, is that intersection or overlap between personalization and spooky algorithms that know too much about us and keep us in bubbles and don't let us explore and, you know, find diversity and difference. So it's all, I guess, you know, when you think about a restaurant that knows you, I guess the storybook ideal of that is, you know, the corner bistro that knows your name, knows how you like your drink, and has a special that they just absolutely know that you will love. You know, they probably cooked it with you in mind in the first place. So that's the ideal. You know, a lot of us, well, few of us live in a world like that. You know, we're traveling more, you know, occasionally. We want to try new things. I guess we want to feel important wherever we go, and perhaps we don't go to the same restaurant 3 times a week. We love to try new things. So I'm imagining what you're talking about is that Me&U will, for example, know that I'm vegan and just show me the vegan items on the menu. Let's do that. And, you know, really speak to me because it knows so much about me from a data sense. But what about that? What about the element of surprise? What about having my boundaries stretched? What about getting out of my comfortable bubble? You know, do you fear for things like that?
Wow, this is a big conversation. I love this, Dani. Like, I think the very, you know, basic premise, and that is that, you know, I think generally customers are open to, to sharing information if, and this is a big if it enriches my experience and if it enriches my life. And I think about, you know, my own experience. You know, I'm lactose intolerant. So, I can't have dairy. Nothing worse than rocking up to a venue, and spending 2 minutes to work out, the 3 dishes on the 35-dish menu that you can have. So my life would be easier if, the venue knew that and could give me a personalized menu. Or for you, knowing that, you're a martini drinker, there's no point chatting to you about, everything else on the menu, whereas, the focus should be around, what's a martini that you're going to enjoy most today, or what's a martini that you had last time and you loved it and you just want to get that again. So I think there's no doubt that, this is much bigger than Me&U. This is just about hospitality. I think we've got to get the balance right between speed and convenience and personalization. And the personalization bit in particular is just, it's far bigger than hospitality because, we all want to feel special. We all want, the owner to know that it's Dani when you walk in. They give you the VIP table. They give you a nice glass of champagne upon arrival. I've been trying to crack that algorithm for 20 years when I first started Dimmi. The problem is the maitre d' changes and you kind of lose all your information. So I think you've got to get that, nice balance between speed, ease, convenience, and recognition, but still allow elements of discovery so that, if somebody, if you're out on a Friday night, Dani, and you want to go a bit wild and you're not after, a margarita, you want something else, then, away you go. But if I know this is what you love, make it easy for me to find it and to order it.
I don't know. It is such an interesting space because I think there is a lot of pushback now about, companies having data about us and knowing too much about us. But on the other hand, if it gets a martini to my table, then, maybe I'm just going to love it. I'll be a total pushover.
Right. See, that's a good example, Dani. I just got that wrong as a maitre d' for you. I said
you were going to give me a margarita, right?
No, that's right. Let's go for the martinis.
I don't know. I do I want all those data points super sharp and just tracking me and knowing me, or do I want to? I don't know. If I think about the great hospitality experiences, it is those connections. It's those moments of discovery and surprise. It's that feeling of being genuinely looked after, and I feel like that's really different. I suppose, the blunt way of doing it is, that the hairdresser knows when my birthday is and sends me a card. It's like it's on that same path. It's just the data points are sharper. I don't know. I feel funny about it.
I think there's got to be a bit of magic in it. Hospitality is about surprise, delight, and recognition. And I think what we can do is to enhance the experience and to deliver more personable experiences. It's up to the operators and the maitre d' to then deliver that in a way that, feels genuine, feels, special, and, makes you feel like it's, like without the knowledge, you just can't do that, right? So I think you're absolutely right, Dani. I think you've got to find the balance.
All right. Sell it to me from a money-making point of view. How would having more technology in my restaurant help me make more money or make any money?
Well, I think this is a very easy bit, Dani, and I think the history is that, and this breaks my heart a bit because I think the industry, as a whole has been burnt quite brutally over the past 10 years by, companies like Deliveroo and Uber and the like, who have, taken customers out of venues, taking them home and, not sharing data and a whole bunch of things. So I think there's kind of a lot of operators have got bad taste in their mouth because they've kind of embraced tech or really been forced to embrace tech. So I think, it's really important, and this is not just Me&U, but I think all tech companies, I think, we've got to be tech for good. So that means we've got to have a much more positive, supportive, embracive empathy towards this industry. So I think that's a starting position. I think, that comes down to the economics of it. I think the single most important thing, Dani, that we've found over the past 3 years is it's pretty black and white, and that is if a customer orders on Me&U, versus the customer who orders through traditional means, the customer who orders on Me&U is spending 27.5% more.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
That's big, right? And that's because when you're ordering, the fish, we're gonna make a nice recommendation of a nice white to go with that. When you're ordering a salad, we're gonna ask you if you want some salmon. These are typically things that should be happening, through the waiter or at the counter, but they're typically not, because selling is a skill, and it requires a lot of knowledge. So Me&U is going to do that 100% of the time. And I think the second reason why it's happening, we've got the data that sort of points to this direction, is it's simply easier to get the second or the third round. So when you're two into a martini and you're thinking, am I going to go home or not? You push a button, you get a martini delivered to the table. It's just easier. So we get rid of the friction. We make it easier than ever before. And in doing so, customers are happier to spend a lot more.
And what's the cost?
So we charge 2.5% of the bill.
Okay. And how many customers have you got?
So we've got 500 across Australia. And that includes, many of the better known brands and groups, Merivale and Howard Smith Wolves and Portsea and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Growing pretty fast.
And which bit do you love? Do you love the building or the growing or the consolidating? Like what part floats your boat?
I'll never forget this moment, Dani. I was I think halfway through my Dimmi journey, and I was getting out of a cab in the CBD, and I was with my chairman, and he turned to me and he said, "Stevan, there's founders and there's CEOs, and they're two different people." And I didn't know what he meant at the time, but a couple of years later, it kind of hit home that there's people that want to create stuff, there's people that want to take something from zero to hero. And I think I'm definitely the what I'd consider to be a founder. I love the thing that keeps me up at night is I want to make a difference to this industry. The thing that keeps CEO awake at night is they're trying to work out how to get the engine running and operating at better capacity. So I love trying to help this industry, and I'll do whatever I can to kind of play a role in making this industry that I love so deeply a little bit better.
So what's the next problem that you want to solve? I'll just write it on a napkin and just hide it on my desk somewhere.
Oh, Dani, we're only at the beginning of this one.
I know, but come on, like, what do you look at? And I'm just thinking, okay, so you sorted out bookings. Now you're sorting out the experience at the table and paying. It's got to be something, what is it? Something back of house, or I don't know. What about, could you fix the supply chain? That would be really handy.
Yeah. I think I'm going to answer this in a roundabout kind of way, Dani, but if you look at the hospitality industry, it's one of the industries across the planet that's become the least digitized. So we're kind of embraced tech really poorly. We haven't embraced it. So I think when you look across the spectrum, whether it's in relation to recruiting or back of house efficiencies, it's so manual and it's so antiquated. So, I think it's very easy to cast your net over this industry and find hundreds of things that need to be solved. And you've just mentioned a couple. So I'd say that I'm very deep in this. I think we're right at the beginning of something that I think is magical. I truly think that, in a very small way, we can make this industry better. And I think once I've done that, and once the team's at a place where we're proud of what we've achieved, then you and I can have a martini and have a chat about what the next one is.
Okay, deal.
But Dani, I will say that I think the funny thing is that when you think about startups, when I finished at Dimmi, I remember I had an interview and I said to Damon Kitney at the Australian, I said, I could never, ever, ever, ever do this startup thing again.
Oh,
Because you know this, but it destroys you and it breaks you, and it just zaps your soul of everything because it's hard yards. And there's so many similarities between startup and hospo because you do it for reasons. At the end of the day, you want to make something better. You want customers to walk out of your venue happier. So I took 6 months off, and I promised myself I was never going to come back. But I think when I stumbled across this, it kind of just felt like you could make a difference. You could do something positive. So that sabbatical didn't last very long. And after 6 months, I was back on the tools to try and get Me&U up and running.
Well, I guess when you do your first startup, you don't know that you're going to sell it for $25 million. So maybe there is another reason why you might want to do the second one.
It's funny. I don't know. I don't know. We're all driven by different things. I think, if I think about, Dimmi or Me&U, it's never about, the money. It's about, can you make a difference? And can you create something that has a lasting legacy? And I think that's far more rewarding, far more special, and far more magical than because I will truly say this: I think there's no amount of money that can make up for what you give as a in startup, because it's absolutely all in, and it zaps you of everything you have.
Yeah, but the person, like a street vendor, could also say that.
No, absolutely, yeah. All I'm saying is, you're doing it for reasons other than money. You're doing it because you're passionate about. The street vendors doing it because they want to put great food in people's mouths.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think anyone that does anything that's only for money will realize pretty soon that it's kind of empty. But yeah, money's nice to have as well. We have been going through a global pandemic, and that is still raging in many places around the world. What do you think that's changed for hospitality? And maybe talk about it in the industry or in what you bring to it. But what do you think it's changed more generally?
Yeah, I think that if you look at the past year, I think there's a couple of things that have definitely transformed in our space, and I think the one thing that that I definitely say the industry has proven to ourselves is that we can pivot and we can innovate. And I hate using the word pivot, but I think as an industry that was not agile, was not nimble, wouldn't embrace stuff, at any rate, I think absolutely it's proven that we can innovate, we can pivot, we can change, and we can do it super quick. So, I think that's a really big takeout. And I think the second bit is that, this industry is without doubt the most resilient of all industries, because, what this industry has been through is just so difficult, so painful. It survived. So, I think the reality is there'll be, fewer and far fewer venues on the other side, but the ones that make it through will be smarter, better equipped, and probably have found ways to do more with less.
Yeah, I wish all the restaurants that I love so much would make it through. I'm really sad that Bar Saracen in Melbourne has closed. It was just one of my absolute favourites, and a restaurant that I think really exemplified the art of hospitality. Beautiful food. Just loved it so much. I feel like I can let restaurants go in the abstract, but some of the restaurants I love, I just really don't want to let go.
Let's hope that they come back at some point soon, Dani. Perhaps in another form.
Yeah, well, definitely. Let's hope so. And I mean, what else do you think what else we're going to see? So you think we're going to see more tech? We're going to see restaurants that survive being stronger. What are the other kinds of things you think we're going to see in restaurants?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see more tech. I hope so, because I do truly believe that tech in all forms is a part of the answer to the, to this in some of the pains that this industry is going through. I think, we're seeing some very obvious things. Menus have been reduced significantly. Prices have been shuffled around, a lot. So I think what we're finding is, that's definitely one big thing. The second big thing that we're seeing is, CBDs will never be the same again. So we're definitely seeing, a significant boom in suburban venues. Nobody expects CBDs to return to any form of normality anytime soon, if ever. So I think we're definitely seeing that. And I think the third thing that we've definitely seen, at a very practical level is, I think, during COVID, lots of operators jumped on the pick up and takeaway bandwagon as a way to survive and, continue to keep their employees employed. I think what we're finding now, as, the doors open again, is that operators can't do both really well. So they're giving up on the pick up and takeaway, the lower margin stuff, and focused around, how do we get the customers in our venue happier? So I think what we're definitely seeing is that, venues who latched on to pick up and takeaway are probably starting to ditch that in favour of the return of in-venue experiences.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think some venues are keeping going, and I think everyone feels like they've probably still got it in their back pocket and just think, Perth goes into a short, sharp lockdown and people have that, they know which way to turn to do that stuff. But I think a lot of people are really happy to say goodbye to, containers and brown paper bags.
Yeah, I think it's just practically very, like, kitchens are designed for a certain number of people, obviously. And, if you've got 100 people on the floor, it's very difficult to be able to handle that 100 really well and handle another 50 people that are sitting on couches at home. So something has to give. And I don't know. I just think about my own personal experiences. Nothing is as magical as sitting around a table and having great food in a venue. And I think as humanity, as a society, I think we need to get back to that. Because I think, we've all lost a year of massive connection. So I think the quicker we can get back to, breaking bread around tables, I think it's better for everyone.
Yeah, I'm fully there for that. Stevan, it's been so amazing to chat to you. And I just want to end the conversation by saying a little thank you, because right at the start of our first lockdown, I think it was like March 25 or something, I had started to become aware of the difficulties that temporary visa holders were in. And I put a call out. I wanted to get a list somehow and start talking to those people. And I put a call out, I think it was maybe on Facebook, I don't even know, asking for someone to help me work out a way to communicate with temporary visa holders who'd lost their jobs in hospitality. And you threw someone in your team onto it who probably did something that was very simple for them and just built a little Google form that could feed into a mailing list. And that mailing list quickly built up to around 1,300 people, and I sent them out about 50 newsletters about the situation that they were in, and just with advice and how to help them and where they could find food or resources or whatever it was that they need. So, and I'm still in touch with so many of those people, and anyone who's on that list and hasn't got a newsletter from me recently, I'm going to do one soon. Sorry, it took me two weeks to find my brain when I got back from holiday. So anyway, thanks.
I think COVID's been very testing for lots of people, but I think there's been a couple of heroes that have stood out, and I think the work that you've done for this industry is second to none. And congratulations, and thank you so much.
Oh, that's not what you were supposed to say, but thank you. But what do you reckon? What do you reckon I should do next?
Keep doing all the magic you're doing, Dani, because I think it's having a big impact across the industry.
All right. Well, I'll when we have that martini, you can give me some concrete ideas. But it's great to chat to you. And I haven't been in a venue yet that's used uses Me&U, but I look forward to giving it a crack. Thank you.
Okay, Dani. Thank you very much.
All right. See ya. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinenat.deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.
It's a really tricky one because, from a government point of view, I can